Okay. Welcome, everybody. So this is we're calling the Conservation Board meeting to order. Very excited for the month of April. Got a couple of cool things to talk about. The first is roll call. Alexis is here. Amy Bowser's here. Let's see, Danielle is here and Lindsay is here. So we've got a full current seated quorum. On this agenda, I'm gonna, the first thing I always like to do is just open it up for public comment. I would remind you though, if it's something that's on the, if it's related to some of our other topics that are officially on the agenda, you may want to wait until we get to those topics. You'll have an opportunity to do public comment on those as well. So does anybody want to provide any public comment? Okay. First item is just a consent item. We again, so I mentioned that Amy is on point. We have meeting minutes to approve from the March 8th meeting.
I think we have more than that, but
what's that?
I don't think we've approved any minutes from 2021. So I think there's more than that, but we can
we could
at a different meeting.
No, we can make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'm not.
All of them. Do you want me to just pull them up real quick?
If we want to do that.
If people want a chance to review the minutes before approving them, don't be shy. Sure. We can do that for sure. But we could just get caught up on that.
Yeah, that was kind of the point of my email, but I don't know how far back we need to go. I think we did
well, let's just I'll just pull them all up. Then we don't have to talk about it again.
Right.
I have 3 sets of minutes up and I'm pulling up nope. Let's see. Oh, I see. And then you started minutes for today because you're really on it. Okay, cool. So let me share my screen. First one. Hashtag Zoom life. Okay, here we go. So these are the minutes from January 27th. This is an opportunity. This was related to that intro meeting that we had. This was where we did our officer elections and we talked about what topics we wanted moving forward. We had some recommendations for next agenda. That was a pretty meat and potatoes kind of meeting. Anybody want to make a motion to approve these minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes from January 27th.
I'll second.
All right, Amy motioned. I heard Danielle second first. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The unanimous aye. Next one. Stop that one. Go to forgive me for the clunkiness. I just don't want to share my whole desktop at any given time. this was from February 22nd. This was the presentation of the draft study by Bob Church of the Greenway study. And let's see, a lot of good bullet points, just sort of summarizing all that. We also have, obviously, as part of that, the copy of the presentation that Bob sent. Martha did a discussion about the other stuff that we were doing relative to timeline. And then we talked about the meeting for the dark skies at the commission. And then we talked about the logistics of our listening session for the energy action plan.
Okay, I'll motion to approve February 22nd minutes.
I'll second this one. Oh, go ahead. No, Alexis, you got it.
Okay, I'll second.
Motion seconded. All in favor?
I
I see unanimous hands. Okay. Finally, we have.
And I'm learning how to do minutes, so they're not going to look like those last ones. So if you want notes, you better take them yourself.
That's
They
right.
get a lot more boring.
Yeah, so this was for that for our listening session that we had on the 8th. It is quite boring.
Which
Is
I
this how
don't
you're supposed
know.
to take minutes? You're not supposed to talk
I
about.
looked at the city commission meeting and kind of followed their format, and I think there's something to be said for not putting too much in the minute because it's public record. So this is what the Livingston City Commission minutes look like. They don't really have too much of the content in there.
Interesting.
I don't know, like I said, I'm learning. So if it seems like I should do them differently, please let me know.
This is
Which I think we just gotta.
I think it'd be
Interesting.
for you
Okay.
to do it this way. Do it this way. If that's how the city approves it.
I don't know that the city cares because our minutes have looked different every time.
No.
That's why I'm trying to be consistent, and so. But we Catherine just commented that we shouldn't be showing who commented, but if you look at the city minutes, it's like very bare bones.
So I think we should probably know more about this. I mean, this meeting, especially this listening session meeting, I think is a great one. It's a great one to sort of capture the different. I mean, if we needed to, and I know Amy,
I have notes on it, so
yeah, I know. I was going to say you and Lindsay have worked on getting on having more, summary of the really good feedback we got during this meeting. I think the question is whether we want that to be done all in one place in the meeting minutes. I mean, obviously you don't want to have word for word transcribed. Well, I guess that is an option, is to word for word transcribe what everybody says. So I don't know, maybe how about this? Can we maybe move to approve this minutes here, but then just we'll follow up and just make sure we're doing what we want to be doing.
Yeah, I don't really want to go back, but I can change what I'm doing going forward. So maybe something in
100%.
between this and the last one.
Yeah.
And like I said, I do have notes on all of this, so on this specific meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I motion to approve minutes from March 8th.
I second. All in favor?
Hi.
I
I see thumbs up. I see yay. Okay. Unanimous. Okay, cool. Minutes approved. It was actually a useful discussion in the end.
yeah, I'm, like I said, still figuring that out. So for these ones, I'll do kind of somewhere in the middle of what I was doing before, and we'll see how that goes.
You bet. Thanks, Amy. Cool. All right. So administration over. Now we have this is just a public hearing related to the proposed green waste facility. I think we've all had at least some opportunity to thumb through the final draft of the green waste study. We saw this is the second time that we've seen this. We got to see this in that meeting a couple of months ago that we just approved the minutes of. And so what I was hoping we could do for this meeting is try to go towards approving or not approving. And then also though, if during discussion, I thought it would be helpful to make a list of advisory comments so that we could summarize those to the commission, because we're an advisory board, right? So we could vote to either approve or not approve, but we can also, if we want to add items to an advisory comments list, we can do that. I would maybe suggest that maybe one of us keep a running list of advisory comments that come up, but if there is something that you want to, so the idea is that we deliver just a note to the commission that says we voted, to approve, or we voted to not approve this green waste study, and here are advisory comments on it, which just means that these are things that may support what we did, but could also just be things that we noticed or items that we were considering. And that way but I didn't want to get into a situation where we just said yes or no with no real feedback, because that didn't feel like that's what an advisory board is supposed to do. So I just thought I'd mention that, so that if while we're going through this, if you'd like to create if you'd like to add some advisory comment to this, just offer it up, and then we'll look at the summary at the end and add it to that note. Does that sound okay with all the board members as a structure?
Yep.
Okay. Then I think what we'll do is, if I'd prefer not to page through the entire report, it's quite long. So instead, let's open it up for public comment first. So I see we've got a couple of people called in, and then we can open up for board comment after that. We can discuss a little bit, and then we'll try to go for that, whether we're going to vote on that or not. Okay, so I'd like to open it up for public comment. If you'd like, I'll try to keep things loosely to 3 minutes for initial comment, and then just please state your name and your address. Catherine, you're in if you want.
Okay, my name's Catherine Dunlap. My address is 413 West Clark Street, Livingston, Montana. My comment is, I think it's a great idea. I think we need to do something with the green waste other than burn it. And so I liked the option that the expandable, the larger expandable option. One thought that I had was it looked like what was not included in the cost was any maintenance or cost of operating the equipment that we'd have to buy. So just a thought there. That's it.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for your interest and attention on it. I appreciate your comment. Let's see. I've got a raised hand for PCEC.
Oh, sorry, I haven't changed my name. It's Michelle Uberaga, 711 Loch Laven. And I am in transit, absolutely multitasking right now, but listening in. And I thought I would just quickly say that I'm really grateful that you guys are tackling this issue, and the conversations that we've had at PCEC as a team. It's just these are complicated issues, and none of us are waste experts, and that there are all sorts of kind of unforeseen things to consider, but that an alternative to just burning, like what Catherine said, we couldn't agree more, an alternative to just burning our green waste. And how do we make it cost effective? It's easy for citizens to engage in. And then, one thing that we talked about is creating compost. It seems like there's a problem when the compost is created and it's not hot enough, so that a lot of yard waste has pesticides on it or maybe has weeds in it. And so that may be something that detracts people from using it in their yards. And so just kind of some issues that we flagged, and then talked as a team. Like my mission is just to learn more, and then for us to think about what experts we know in our community that we can encourage to submit. You guys look at this proposal and submit some written comments. But in general, thank you, applause for moving this forward. I think there's quite a bit of interest in our community for this. I think a thoughtful solution will be well supported and appreciated. So I'm gonna listen in and learn with Mario.
Thanks, Mario.
Turning my video back off, guys, and the mute.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot for that, Michelle. So I'd like to just maybe open it up to Martha, if you would, just if you had any follow-up comments. I think we did distribute that follow-up email you had that related to some of the concerns that came up with our initial review. That was incredibly helpful. Did all the board members get a chance to see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you wanted to mention that you learned or that was different or new or noteworthy between when you did the presentation before and the final report that's before us?
Sure. Well, the two comments that we received just now, the maintenance of equipment, I actually learned is included in the whole rate structure. It's included as part of, sorry,
It's okay.
the FEMA rate that's in the report. That includes purchase of the equipment and maintenance and operation over time. So that's in there, which I didn't know as well. I had to ask that. And as far as pesticides and everything, we will be required to test the compost, especially if we're going to be selling it. And we can have people request us take the temperature if that's what it takes. And we're prepared to do that too.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That was something that came up for me also on that, was that we had reviewed that last time, and it's definitely something that has to get tested and measured and managed for sure.
Yep. Especially if it's going to be sold to the public.
Thank you, Martha. Anything else to add?
Just here to answer some questions if possible.
Okay. Board members, I don't want to call on anybody, just jump in. Does anybody want to make comment or ask questions or anything like that about the report in front of us?
I had one question that maybe Martha could help answer. The one thing that I thought it looked really great, and especially the whole pricing, because I feel like a lot of stuff comes down to money. But this is all voluntary as far as people paying for it. My first thought was, well, aren't a lot of people just going to throw it in their trash? That being said, I have thought through some reasons why they wouldn't do that, because like sometimes I have a very tiny yard, but I can fill up a green bin in one go. So some people are going to just do it because they can't fit it in their trash. Obviously not talking about the people who really care, but there's going to be a lot of people out there who don't care. So I'm just wondering what the city's view, I'm sure you guys talked about that. And how do you feel about how much waste might be going through the trash instead of going, because now people have to pay?
So we did talk about that, and that was a big concern, that maybe more people won't choose the program because it will be more expensive. But I think in the long run, I mean, I personally never had a green can because they just weren't available when we moved here. And we ended up having to throw our green waste into the garbage. And we're actually hoping that by doing these public presentations and the study, that we'll be able to educate more people, and they'll want to participate in the program just out of personal responsibility. I mean, like a green can is a very convenient way to separate your green waste, and $6 a month. I mean, yes, it is a fee, but I'm one of those, like, I get a cup of coffee every day, so $6 a month for me it's maybe like two less cups of coffee a month. But so we'll see, and this year is gonna be kind of a trial run to see how it goes, and we don't have the funds to do the actual composting up like right away. To set it up, it's going to take time, it's going to take a loan. So right now we're just starting with the green waste program, the green can program. We're going to continue doing what we do, store it up at Swingley. And as we create this composting area and we get the equipment and we get the labor, hopefully we can start moving towards that too. Yeah, but we'll keep composting as much as we can, which is what we've been doing down at the treatment plant now.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you said what I assumed, but I felt like it was something that should be brought up. So
Okay.
I figured it was a wait and see, and I figured you guys had also talked about it, because in my ideal world, we would just pay for trash, but get the green waste, get recycled. But I also realize that's like a huge step for Livingston to go from what we have currently to expect everyone to have 4 bins and know what to do with them and be okay with paying them out. So I think it's a good step in the right direction, even if it's not like where I personally would like to see it.
I have a question for you, Martha.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost, so currently it's not costing us anything, is kind of what the report said, because we just burn it, but it costs the environment. Is that kind of
No, I mean, it still costs the city we have a truck driver, we have fuel, we have truck maintenance. We actually use the same truck drivers who collect our regular garbage. So they're actually working overtime to collect green waste over the summer because we don't have anyone extra.
Right.
And then once it's here, we separate it. And during the burns, we have to monitor those. And we do pay fees for the license and everything to do it through DEQ properly.
Right.
So there are actually quite a bit of costs associated to it, and we've been losing a lot of money on it as just inherent costs, equipment maintenance and everything too. And then whatever we can't burn, we take up to Swingley, which is a lot. And then whatever, and that's transfer fees. And then whatever doesn't fit up there, we actually have to take to the landfill, and that's about $48 a ton. So that's what we really want to stop doing, is taking things to the landfill and keeping it here and being able to compost it. But I saw that question pop up on the bottom about we're not presently composting. The report talks about that. And it's the reason we're not using our green waste to compost is because of the nitrogen to carbon ratio. So right now, the green waste is too much carbon, carbon, yeah, too much carbon. So we need more nitrogen, and we just don't produce enough biosolids to offset that rate. Well, okay, that's not right. I'm going to talk myself into a circle, so I better write that down and have Russ give that proper answer, because he's the one who's doing all the composting. But it's in the report as well. If you have a moment to read that little section.
Catherine, do you have the report?
I don't have the final report. I have the presentation, but I don't have the final report. I'd love to see that. I just, so do we have a timeline on when we would? I mean, so we're just gonna continue to collect this stuff and like hold on to it
Just
and
for this
possibly
year.
burn it?
Just for this year,
Okay,
as we set up the program, because
Okay.
it doesn't happen overnight. We have to buy the
Yeah.
loader or the turn row machine.
Mhm.
And we have to put the fences up and get a shack up there, and there are just a lot of things that go into setting it up. And we have to get a loan because we don't have the funding at the moment. So we're hopeful to have it up and running for next season.
okay.
Yes.
You guys are inspiring me to go get my baby, by the way.
This is not
This is
easy.
my puppy.
I'm trying to like just be in solidarity right now with Martha. How old is your little one?
He's one.
Mario is almost 11 months. So we're
Oh, they're so cute. Until they cry.
did-
Oh,
Just
go
say
ahead.
one. Um,
Yeah, Catherine, please. Yes.
there's a guy here in town who is doing a lot with methane off of large landfills. Put us in touch with one of his employees who used to manage huge landfills. Like he managed this huge landfill in Metro Salt Lake that handled 17 towns. And so they did composting. And he was, so Joni Kresich and I met with him. And he said the biggest issue we will have to deal with the consumer bins is contamination, like people putting dog poop and horse poop in there and those kinds of things. So I wonder if we've taken that into consideration at all. And also his employer is making him available to us if we want to talk to him, if we've got questions. So he may be a really good resource for us. Just a thought.
Oh, that's very kind. I think we could provide that contact info Catherine. I think it's wonderful to offer, have offers of maybe some consulting help, especially as they're setting up the facility. One of the things that I'm just going to mention it now. I had kind of a laundry list of things in my head. One of them was related to like the green can labeling, because I think that, for example, the recycling labeling at the transfer station is still really confusing. It looks sometimes and I hope I don't not hurting anybody's feelings when I say sometimes it almost willfully confusing, it looks like, particularly related to, say, plastic recycling of number 2 clamshells, right? Which is just, it says, yes, you can recycle a number 2, but no clamshells. And what they actually mean is no clamshells, even if they're number 2. But you don't know that because not all clamshells are number 2. It's this, and it's really hard. That's just an example of, I think with the rollout of this, it would be really helpful to, when people see it new and before they start forming good or bad habits around the new green cans, to have really clear labeling and signage on them. And I love that you mentioned the dog poop thing, because I think that's frankly something that could probably increase the quality of our compost if we just had good labeling on the cans that said, yeah, don't, no poop, that kind of thing. And I wasn't sure what the plan was for that. So that's the perfect kind of thing that I think we could add to, say, in just advisory comments on this program. And I'd look for us to so I'd like to offer up that's one thing I'd like to add to a list here right now. That just to make sure that incredibly clear stickers and signage are put on these green cans for distribution.
I want to add on to that, Michael. Great point. And our organization did a training on compostable packaging for like value-added producers recently. And the main recommendation from the commercial composting facilities was that if a business were to adopt any kind of compostable packaging, that they go 100%, because if someone gets a compostable cup, but then not a compostable lid or not a compostable straw, or you have a package with not a compostable sticker, that all of that is extremely confusing. So that was new learning for me, that it's like, one, if you're going to go to compostable packaging, you need compost pickup and a commercial access to a commercial facility, and also that consumers need a lot of like support and education to not contaminate the bins. So I don't know if education and outreach is part of our role, which I'm not quite sure yet if that is, but maybe that's something we could take on to, in addition to the recommendation to the city.
Love that, Lindsay. Yeah, it is absolutely part of our role in our charter is education and outreach and identifying that. So
I have one more. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Amy.
No, it just goes with this. I was just looking, my parents live in a city in Oregon that's way further along than we are. So I was just looking at what they have, and they have this awesome website for the city that just goes through what can go in the recycle bins, what can go in your green waste bins, what goes in their compost bin. And I think that's fairly lacking for Livingston. Like, people want to go to a website to look for something. And so that would be a relatively easy thing to make sure that gets rolled out with these new green bins.
That's a great idea, and I think that would be probably the quickest and easiest thing to implement right away. I like that. Thank you.
Cool. Looking at,
I just had a quick question for Alexis. When you did the baseline carbon study, was this composting facility or our like city waste part of the assessment?
So city waste was, but green waste wasn't really a specific part of it. In as much as they should like truck any green waste up to Great Falls, which is where we send all of our landfill waste, then it would have been included, but it wasn't really like a separate component of it. So it was mostly just looking at the trucks and everything picking up waste, and then the cost of driving it up to Great Falls.
I don't know if this is part of our role either, but recommending some kind of baseline on like what the current system's emissions are, kind of looking ahead to the climate action plan to, you know, if that's one more reason to adopt the major scale facility rather than the smaller one. If we could show overall reduction in emissions.
well, I'd love to frame this a little bit because I like this thinking. It feels like, you know, because today we have this, you know, relatively incremental facility upgrade step report in front of us. And I think though, sort of looking ahead, it feels like there should be a phase 2 of some kind where there's a you know, there's been a lot of public comment to do the food waste in the community and that sort of thing, to, you know, even doing the compostable containers and all of that would be wonderful. And I think from our last time we said, yeah, there's nothing about this plan that precludes doing any of that. But I think that as a way to sort of maintain that momentum and make sure that that's kind of one of the very next things that get looked at, I think that kind of analysis, Lindsay, is probably exactly what we need. So how do you want to, is there a way that you want to sort of put that into the recommendations that we're doing now, or do you want to try to suss that out as a separate sort of set of recommendations that come from the conservation board or to the city, or, you know, whatever? What's your thinking?
I'm happy to do whatever's best for the city to, you know, hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is bucket. I'm just kind of opening my process up here. What I'm trying to do in my head is bucket what gets included in recommendations with this report, what gets included as a sort of overall recommendation. I wanted to point out, I saw Catherine made a comment asking about developing new signage at the transfer station, which I think is a great idea because we mentioned it in this meeting. I don't think it's really not really in the topic here, but it's definitely something that needs to get looked at. And so I'm just wondering if there's a way to partition out this project so that we have some clear-cut actionable recommendations that come from us, and that the vision for what those actions are leading to is pretty clear. And so should we add to this that we want to have a current assessment of what we currently do as part of this letter, or of recommending or not recommending this?
Would that be taken as like a recommendation out of context? I mean, that's what I'm trying to get a sense of.
That's me too, actually.
And also, doesn't this report kind of explain what we currently do?
Yep.
Yes.
Some.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, you know what, that I think the added layer that Lindsay mentioned is it doesn't have a carbon input or carbon impact, if
I
that's,
mean, that's just a quick calculation.
and maybe, you know, maybe there's time for that. Maybe we hold off on that until we start looking more holistically at carbon impact of city processes and lump it into that. Or I guess my point is, I'm not sure that we need the motive. I don't think that anybody needs the motivation or justification yet. It may, but that may be the case for especially for the food waste piece of it, because it may not make such good financial sense. That's just my sense. I don't know. I'm just throwing out comments to be responded to, really.
Yeah, Danielle, are you saying that the information we would need to assess the current carbon emissions is already in this report?
It looks like it. I mean,
Okay.
it gives you like how many tons of grass clippings and how many tons of wood waste. And then, I mean, the city knows how much they burn versus maybe the city doesn't know how much they burn versus how much they take up. I would assume if they get charged $45 a ton, they know how much they're taking up to the trash, to the landfill. So it's a pretty quick spreadsheet in my mind. But
Yeah, and that alternative is laid out in one of the alternatives. Table 11 talks about what it would cost to landfill all green waste as collected by this. 160,000.
well, I mean, I don't really see a ton bad about this proposal. It's a little pricey, but everything is a little pricey when it comes to waste. But I don't know if we need to make that justification until people start asking questions about it. It would just be nice to see it.
Didn't it,
I'm not sure if
wasn't it like comparable to what they're paying now? So, because in my mind, I had the idea that like, well, why wouldn't we do this? Like just coming down to money, because realistically, a lot of things come down to that. So
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean-
it looked like it was pretty comparable to what they pay now.
Yeah, table 12. Let me just share this. And Catherine, I just because you're an awesome, interested community member and you called in and all that stuff, if you do look at, I think I at some point maybe forwarded you the minutes from or rather there's a clickable link is what I'm trying to say in the agenda for this meeting that can pull up this study. Unfortunately, it's just way too big to email. So this is the alternatives that we're talking about here. So this is kind of the point of the whole study here. It seems like is table 12 is the alternatives comparison. And I think this might, Amy, have been what you're referring to in terms of showing that if we just do the landfill of all waste, we get to 99.18.
Which is obviously not the full story of why we're doing this, but it looks good when what they recommend is cheaper than that.
Yeah, I think the piece that's missing from this cost comparison is that we know that what we're currently doing is, I mean, this was all ballpark, but ballpark 15% is getting managed the way that we want it. And 85% is either burned or hauled to the landfill. And I don't know what the breakdown is in that 85%. If it's like 40% gets burned and 45% gets hauled to the landfill or whatever. And that would certainly impact the cost overall. But I also feel like there's been a pretty strong expression that I've heard anyway in the community around, boy, we really don't want to be burning that much. And so that seems like a less relevant option, frankly. So I'm not that upset that it's not even listed here. Anyway, just to bring all this back, I think we're kind of moving around this because we're trying to see if it's justifiable that we, just how much do we want to include with our advisory comments with this is really what it comes down to.
I just hate giving people more work. Like, let's do more analysis when this is a pretty clean analysis of what it needs to, of what's going to happen.
I agree.
Yeah. So
I mean, I think
asking
the
like for new
education
signage
component,
and community education on how to do it and what not to put in there is definitely a recommendation, but recommending that they analyze how much CO2 they're saving, people aren't going to want to do that. Just to be honest. I just got done with a big contracting issue. The more work you give people, the less they're going to do it. So.
Okay, so then okay, so within that narrow scope, is there anything else that we want to do, that we want any advice based on, any of these options? Any concerns? But for instance, I would like to put a couple of just affirmative things in here, regardless of whether we approve or disapprove this, just mentioning that we think that it's good that the city is trying to address green waste holistically, and that we're excited anyway that there could be a path to having 85% gap addressed. Anything else?
Gap is.
Well, the estimate that I think Shannon, Martha, can you keep me honest here? Was it Shannon that mentioned that, or that it was it's just a back of the envelope estimate that came from our initial one, but the number that I remember that stuck out in my head was that about 15% of the green waste is managed right now kind of in the way that someone would imagine green waste is managed. The 85% of the green waste that's collected is either burned or put in the landfill.
Oh, okay.
And that's the fundamental problem that we're trying to solve. Was I lying, or was that well stated, Martha? Or
yeah, it is about 15. The rest of it, I mean, landfilled, burnt, or just taken up to Swingley.
Right.
Just sitting there waiting to be composted. Yeah.
Right. So our capacity to compost is only 15% of what we intake, essentially. And it's just
so if it's not going to cost more, they've already implemented the green can cost to the residents, so there's nothing we can do for that. It's going to help us burn less and go to the landfill less. I feel like it's a no-brainer.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't say anything else either because I was thinking more about where I saw the problems, but truthfully the report makes it pretty clear that what they recommend sounds like a great idea. I just want to say that for me, having it scalable at this point, would be the smartest option, because I know that there were other options there that weren't as scalable. So I would personally really want to go with that option. And thankfully that's the one that was recommended by the service that did the report. So that's my last 2 cents.
I mean, I was literally going to ask Martha, so what's wrong with this proposal? Give me your problems, because I don't see too many here.
I mean, personally, I've read it. This is, I think, the third final draft of the report. The first one was written strictly for engineers, and I'm an engineer, but I don't, composting and garbage is not my expertise area at all. So we asked the report to be rewritten for the public to be able to understand. So, I mean, as far as what's missing, we've had our heads in this for so many months. Like when you work on a project, you know, you kind of like get lost in the weeds and you're like, I need somebody else's perspective, an outside perspective. So that's part of the reason we wanted to bring it here too.
Yeah.
Your input's very valuable.
Yeah. I mean, Great West does a good job. They've done a ton of WRFs. They do a lot of re-engineering them in Montana to be more efficient. So, I mean, they know their stuff over there. I've worked with them a lot on all the new WRF reconstructions. So,
Well, that's good to hear.
just FYI, they're great.
Good.
And they're very into energy efficiencies, and they have a lot of new products that they've introduced me to, which they don't create, that they do their research and they find all these new innovative products and introduce them to Montana, which is great. So.
And we were hoping to continue working with them. So like whatever next recommendations you all have, this isn't the end of our relationship with Great West by any means. This is just the beginning. And the biggest thing was to start up our composting. I mean, we have a small composting license up at Swingley. It's just, we don't have the finances or the employees to do anything with it. Which is why we did this study in the first place. So we have to take baby steps here. But we would definitely like to continue the relationship with them and keep going and look at cutting down our emissions and all of that. But that's gonna have to be down the road for sure. And incorporating food waste if we can get this up and running properly.
Cool.
It looks like Michelle wants to share something about how you guys do your composting events. Are you still here, Michelle?
Do you want to just make a comment, Michelle? Yeah, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The hand from your previous one was up and I realized you might have been trying to raise your hand again. I apologize.
Well, you know, Megan brought up the point about, or Daniel, I actually can't remember who brought up the point. I'm sorry. About, Daniel, about you can't just have one compostable fork if you have the complications about educating the public and how do you convince or how do you talk to folks in the course of the folks that ran the hoot were committed to, they want to do a zero waste, zero plastic event for the hoot. And they reached out to us at Park County Environmental Council to help. And I'll say the first conversation that I had, I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a lot of work. How are we going to do that? But we had a staff person that was really committed to figuring it out and getting all the vendors to adopt the right compostable tools, their takeout containers. And then we hired Happy Trash Can, as Catherine mentioned in the chat there, to deal with the compost. So I think there's an example of our community coming together and learning how to do a zero waste event. And then the farmers market as a result has been zero waste. And we have a waste station at the farmers market where volunteers help sort. And so there are models that we're already doing in our community for you guys to look to. And then we did use the industrial composting facility with Happy Trash Can. And as I understand the last conversations I've had with them, they were doing a ton of composting for the city of Bozeman. And then the city decided to take it over themselves. And I think Happy Trash Can is really interested in expanding their efforts here in Park County. They were really good partners. And for the hoot, with volunteers and a little grassroots bootstraps effort, we created just two garbage cans. And we couldn't have done that without Happy Trash Can, without willing community members, without all of the vendors that were willing to transition the takeout stuff that they used So I think we have a model that you guys could look to that might be helpful and informative.
Well, I think that would be a good platform for educating the public on what to compost and what not to, is using that farmer's market and the hoot to say, hey, I mean, it's free. It's basically free education.
Yeah. And to say, I think with the hoot, we generated 2 garbage cans worth of our community. There were 10,000 people, or 5,000. I don't know, depending on who you ask, but somewhere between 5 and 10. And I mean, that's super cool. And if you compare that to the parade, where we aren't, 4th of July parade, we're not doing that. What's the cost to the city? And those, I think, are cool things that we could highlight for the community to say that when we work together, we can save the city a whole lot of money. And that was, and we're happy to help with that, those type of events or however. So
I think it's also, it's so cool, Michelle. I mean, that's actually a huge source of pride. I think it's wonderful. Like and congratulations, right? I mean, it was an amazing little sort of cherry on the event just to have that. And the piece that maybe could come out of this is, it sure would be nice to have a refreshed set of guidelines for the city, so that when we have events like that, PCC can just put put the guidance right in front, so people are seeing exactly what you're supposed to do. And of course, if you negotiate with like Happy Trash Can or something to have even better or bigger intake, that's also great. But I'm even thinking about the fairgrounds and all the events and all the other things that happen. I mean, just having something that someone can print out, Alexis, you're definitely part of the rollout for the face masks, all those business, the Park County Health Department signs, right, that are everywhere. I mean, it's a real simple PDF that someone can just print out, but it really helps get the word out, and maybe could be part of maybe a bigger effort to communicate properly on green waste and recycling, both in the community. So I think we should take this discussion and just and maybe maybe we don't add that to the recommendations for this. Maybe, I mean, I think that the green can labeling is maybe an exception, but maybe instead we sort of take a whole meeting and look at what recommendations to make on how to roll that out. Better signage, better all that stuff for this stuff.
Couldn't we
seems
do
like
that
might-
in other stuff?
sorry.
I just
What's
want to
that?
move forward with this. Couldn't we do that and other stuff? I hate to get stuck on not making a recommendation.
I think
No,
so.
no,
but
no,
right
that's
now
not-
shouldn't
Yeah,
we be focused on just this component? For
Yeah, I
right
was
this
gonna.
second?
That's what I was getting at, Catherine. I wasn't saying we're not
Okay.
voting on this. What I was saying, what I was saying is that I would like to spin this discussion off on a bigger discussion on how to communicate to the public what's recyclable and what's all that stuff, so that we can gather some of this stuff we've heard, because we do need to vote on this proposal now. But it sounds like there's a lot of energy, since the topic of composting is up, that we should see about how to roll that out in a better way for the community. It'd be a pretty bite-sized project.
Different meeting, Catherine, don't worry.
But a different meeting, just a different meeting for that piece. We're running real close. I'm about to ask for final comments on this, because I'd like to move on to the next topic.
I motion to make the recommendation to go forward with the green plan. How's that?
I love it.
Am I allowed to do that? I think I am.
Oh, you're a board member. You can make any motion you want anytime. So we do have a motion on the table. Does anybody second that motion to make the recommendation to move forward with?
I'll
the green-
second. This is
right.
Lindsay.
All right, so we have a second by Lindsay, which means that we need to hold a vote. Alexis, what do you say?
Aye.
Yes. Aye. Amy, what do you say?
Aye.
Danielle, what do you say?
Aye.
Lindsay, what do you say?
Hi.
And I also say aye with enthusiasm. So we'll do that recommendation. Does anybody want to make a motion to add an additional advisor comments? I have tried to make a list. Because what I'll do, if it's okay to implement that vote we just had, is I'll send a letter to the commission saying we had this vote, we approved, but I can also add whatever we want to it. So I'll start with mine. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend a phase 2 study that would incorporate food waste and industrial composting.
I will second it. Sorry, I'm trying to take notes.
I know if the text is in a motion, you're gonna have to. Well, okay, so we have a motion that's been seconded. Let's see, Alexis. Yes. Amy.
Yeah. Yes.
Danielle. Yes, I think you're on mute, but I saw aye. Lindsay.
Hi.
All right, I vote yes. So that's unanimous. Anything else? Does anybody want to make a motion around? Again, this is just to include as advisory notes the signage for the green cans.
Yeah, I will make a motion to recommend clear education for the public regarding green waste cans.
I'll second.
And is that, Amy, just to clarify, is that on that motion, is that on can or just in general? Like what was kind of the action?
I think there needs to be multiple avenues of clear education, including signage on the cans, a website, and anything else that seems relevant.
Okay, awesome. So I'm actually, thank you. You still second that, Alexis? Okay, great. So motion there, Alexis. So the motion's on the table. Alexis, how do you vote? Yes. Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Danielle, how do you vote? Lindsay, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we can.
Who seconded that?
Alexis.
Okay. Can't keep up.
The only other question I have about any more recommendations are like, is there any chance that the city would not take alternative 4 as the option with the windrow turner and the major site? And if so, would it make, would any recommendations that we have make a difference?
Yeah, I think that we should
Yeah.
say what we recommend in there. And I personally was thinking option 4. I think yeah.
Yeah. So Lindsay, are you making a motion that we create an advisor comment on this to that motion?
Express specific
number 4?
support on alternative 4 and the recommendation from Great West to proceed with implementation of alternative 4.
I'll second it. Alexis, what do you say? Yes. Amy, what do you say?
Yes.
Danielle, what do you say? Yes. Lindsay, what do you say?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Anything else? I mean, we could probably come up with things for forever, but anything that feels that it really needs to be attached to this?
I feel complete.
It's the goal of my everyday. Okay.
No, I think this is good.
Okay, great. Good job, guys. Thanks. Well, any other final? We voted, so is there any other final public comment on that topic? I want to move on if we can. No. Yes. No. Thanks, guys. Okay. And thanks, Martha. If you want to jump off, you're free to do so.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Okay. Moving along. Okay, so the next items are really just working meeting items. So I know our meetings are rather discussion-y anyway, but now it's just truly just a working meeting discussion. But I was talking to Joan Cressich, who had joined here, I can tell, a little bit earlier. I know we've talked on the board about wanting to do something about EVs, and then have like an EV presentation and that sort of thing. I thought it would be kind of fun to workshop this process, which is us making a recommendation to the city to go and do a value analysis on the EVs, and maybe even do it before we do a comprehensive sort of presentation or look at EVs in the community, just because it's an easy thing for us to fire off and do, and then it gives sort of an actionable thing. And I know that there's and this is more of like a sort of a process thing, and y'all know I'm a process geek. I think that like making actionable recommendations to the commission is one way to really just knock out a lot of things. We've talked about, especially after our climate listening session, I mean, there's just so many dang topics related to climate and everything, and we're looking at how to address that. But in the meantime, there's a few just sort of low-hanging fruit that we can kind of just get the ball rolling on, and maybe be able to come back to it later. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the city and the commission, and I think ever since we learned the hard way with the night sky stuff last year, we've kind of figured out how to do the process a little better as an advisory board. And I'll say that I've heard that members of the city staff, and who are the people that we're really leaning on to be able to do this stuff, are really appreciative of us sending actionable things through the commission to them, because it helps them get visibility on priority, on the priority thing and all that stuff. So to that end, after talking to Joni a little bit about EVs, I thought it would be fun to put this letter up as both a model for maybe something that the city can do that's actionable on EVs, but also as a kind of a discussion point for our process. And I wanted to just hear your feedback. So both on the meat of a potential letter that I'll bring up on the screen in a second, and also your comments on the process and how you feel like if it's doing what we want it to do. So while I pull it up, does anybody want to Anybody want to talk on that?
Michael, could I say just a little teeny bit here, or do
Oh,
you?
oh, of course. Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah.
I wanted to make sure that Joni, thank you for coming, because I asked you to please join our meeting. And you're
Good, and I'm really happy to be here.
Well-
Really appreciative of all what you all put in. It means a lot and it translates, and we're all junkies for progress. That's our addiction. I just want to let you all know that Yellowstone Bend, let's see, I think last summer made a 5-year plan with a lot of very actionable, measurable goals. And one of them was to get our city on board with a replacement plan, so that when city vehicles are retired, they're replaced with EVs. And Michael and I had a wonderful conversation about that. And thank you, Michael. Michael took the ball. What I want to just let all of you know is that Yellowstone Bend is ready to support this process in any way that is needed. I have a feeling it could be a smooth process without a lot of opposition, and maybe you won't need us to do more than make sure a few people are at city meetings. But I want you to know that we're here to support this. It's in our 5-year plan, and we're excited to get it done. And thank you, Michael.
Oh, thank you. The impetus was really appreciated. So just to put this in context, guys, we don't have to send this letter. I'm not asking us to vote on this or anything like that. I'm really just asking as a prototype on how to communicate to the commission about things like how do we do things. And I thought it's so much easier to respond to an option than it is to sort of noodle out loud. So this was something that we came up with that came from the conversation that Joni mentioned that we had, and I just jotted down the notes from some of that, which is essentially an actionable sort of a quick summary. It really follows the same structure as our dark sky thing, where we said, here's a summary of the things, it says these vehicles can have a lot of demonstrated benefits to the public. And I said can here because I think that's important. We're not representing anything we don't know for sure, but the research I've done says that they have a real good potential of having cheaper full life cycle costs, cleaner air, more flexible fueling options, which just means we can have stuff closer to home, lower risk of stranding assets, which just means that, investments in gas vehicles are actually now we're within lifetime ranges of that being a stupid decision if we go to full electric transport. Lower carbon footprint. And then, well, I'll just stop there for a second. So
I think it looks good.
I want to stop talking. Tell me how this feels. How are we doing?
Well, I'm not on the commission, but I think that letter is fabulous. I really appreciated it, and I saved it because I think they're really good talking points. If those of us out in the community need to ever, use talking points, they're great.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that.
I think the introduction, like what you said, it follows a dark sky, but it's obviously a lot shorter. The introduction part here is important to say why. And I also like that you're covering not just the energy side of it, you are also looking at money, because that's like the stranding assets. To me, that comes down to like the city not, spending money in an incorrect manner. That's important. So I think that looks good.
Amy, can I ask you, I'm just going to ask very bluntly and specifically, do you have concerns about firing off this kind of letter without having a more holistic look at EVs and what they mean in our world and if they are the right choice for Livingston and all that stuff? Does this?
What I did read this, but what I would like is us to say that the city should look into this and do a study on several different things instead of just saying, we think you have to do this. Because there are some instances where electric vehicles either, like you say at the bottom, aren't available, or they might not be the best option, depending on what that full like carbon equation and money equation looks like.
Yeah.
So I just want the wording to be appropriate. I think what you wrote looks really good, and yeah, so just more of a recommendation for like moving forward with understanding this and if this is a good option for Livingston, but not making it a, requirement, I guess. Not that we can even do that, but
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't have any real power here. We can make recommendations. I mean, I always see the role of our advisory board both as to provide expertise-based recommendations. So truly just bring novel ideas that may not be considered without that expertise, right? And that's why I think each of us brings pretty amazing expertise to this advisory board. And so we are, I mean, truly, we are in some ways the experts, with the help of, community organizations like Yellowstone Bend or Park County Environmental Council or other interested people that call into our meetings. I mean, we're kind of the point of ideation on a lot of things. But also we are, by collecting public comment and by providing recommendations, we're giving the commission the political cover and political will that they need in order to make votes and create action. And that does actually then create change.
Michael, could I add one more quick thing?
Yeah.
Is that okay? I don't want to go mess up the sequence here. Just very quickly, I had a chance, Kamran Taranchi is in town, who was the first Energy Corps intern. I think maybe most of you or all of you know, and we had an opportunity to meet with Shannon Holmes about some other things, but the issue of EVs came up, and I just, I know, and you may already know this in your conversations with him, but he's thinking about it. The city is thinking about it. And Amy, that what I learned from that conversation, and Michael might have more to say about this, is that the real heavy vehicles are not there yet in terms of good options. But the city has plenty of light vehicles, light trucks. Yeah, so the city's going to be great to work with. I can see that, and with this commission and with community groups providing all kind of backup whenever we're needed, I think this will get done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other piece, so I do have a couple of comments. That one, so I agree. All the conversations I've had with city staff, they may be doing this anyway, frankly. Like, they're going to have to buy vehicles. Yes, the way that the market is right now, that it may be a different discussion in 3 years, but there's just not a very good, cost-effective, fully electric, garbage collection yet, for example. Right. I mean, that's just a lot of mass to move. And the way that EVs have been successful is with low center of gravity, light vehicles that are, that don't have to lug a giant motor around. They can basically, and as battery density is increasing and cost is going down, they're really on par in terms of cost with their gas brethren. So that's in light duty vehicles to light duty trucks, like the utility truck with the tank in the back that drives around and manages, so that's a perfect kind of vehicle that could be considered for electric. Certainly any passenger cars. I think the other point of this, and I did run this notional process by the city manager, because I wanted to check in if this was going to be well received, and his answer was yes, of course this would be well received. This is the kind of thing that helps them with the city strategic plan and make sure that these items get into the strategic plan, and that this isn't like we're not begging city staff to do some side job. Basically, like it's come down on high from city commission, and it really helps them prioritize their workload. And the other thing I would just say is I think that in this kind of thing, as a matter of process, again, we should always just be asking them to do, that was kind of the point of this paragraph down here. After this short investigation, we would like to work with city staff to create a list of policy recommendations, procedure updates, or other actions as appropriate to quickly move our city towards incorporating battery electric vehicles into our fleet as we replace aging vehicles. So, I mean, what that is hinting at is that maybe one output of this analysis is to say, boy, our EV acquisition, or our EV, our procurement procedure for vehicles should put a question at the very beginning that says, is it possible to do this with a battery electric vehicle? If so, and then if it says, and have you selected one? And if not, give your justification here, so that when it goes up in front of the commission for them to vote on it, they see this answer and they're able to say, well, what's that all about? Or, oh yeah, that makes sense. And even asking the question often is enough to push the requisition, or sorry guys, it's starting to get late, the requisition towards battery electric vehicles. So more,
I remember
board comments. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, I remember Jonathan talking about this last year. We brought this up, and his thought was to get it into the process of, like, there must be some, I don't know how the city does it, but yeah, when you need a vehicle, you have to go through this process, and it needs to be part of that process to see if there's an option or if that's not feasible at this time. And I think that sounds really smart. So one thing, my husband's a mechanic, I was talking to him about this, and he was wondering, we are not up on electric vehicles. So he was wondering about the batteries in cold weather. So how many city vehicles go inside a heated shop every night? Or are they going to be stored outside? And what's that going to do to the battery? Like, is it going to shorten the life? Is it going to make it less efficient?
Yeah.
I'm just curious about that. I know it's a little detailed for what we're talking about.
No, it's okay. I can answer. Or Alexis, do you know the answer? I can answer that one too. So the way this, and guys, this is just because I'm an EV nerd, honestly. In cold weather like ours, it's really heating the cabin because, gas vehicles are, they come with heat built in, right? So your heater is essentially free, free energy because you're using waste heat from the engine block. You don't get that if you have a pure battery electric vehicle. So you have to actually create all the heat that you have. And so what that means is in cold weather, you can see, like they did some range analyses on different vehicles in cold weather based on temperature and stuff. For us, like in the dead of winter, you will see like a 35% range reduction, depending on if you're doing highway driving. You actually have a lower range reduction based on heating because you're going faster, and so the heat is based on how long you're in the vehicle, but it doesn't matter. The bottom line is the average is about 30% range reduction for kind of normal in-town driving. And
that probably doesn't matter too much when you have a maintenance pickup going to Sacagawea Park.
I think that's right, Amy, because, my husband and I are thinking about an EV, and we make a couple of trips a year to the Bay Area. It matters to us that we just learned that, in the winter, we're going to lose 30% if we're trying to calculate the distance between charges and be able to do that trip. But it feels like, Michael, I'm really like to hear from you because you are the EV nerd. I know that. Around town, it feels like where you can just hook up every single night. It doesn't feel like it's going to be an issue. What do you think?
Yeah, so generally the range of that, let's say you go get a Bolt, which is the kind of budget EV, the hatchback that's available. You can get them a few different ranges, but let's say it's on the lower range. I mean, it covers, unless you're doing city to city driving, it covers truly, and I'm not exaggerating, it's like 95% of all use cases. You have energy to spare. It's really the challenge with EVs is related to when people are doing longer trips. That's really the single, and they have a term for it. It's called range anxiety, right? And it's related to, I get in the car, I want to drive, I'm in Montana, so every distance is big. I want to drive somewhere. I don't want to get stranded somewhere, or worse, or I don't want to be somewhere and then have to charge for 12 hours before I can get back. And so the way that charging behavior has happened for most EV users, 80% of their charging or more is done at the house overnight. So most of their energy comes from their home at a relatively slow rate. And then the other 20%, that's when you're talking about either level 2 or level 3 DC fast chargers. And so when we get into maybe a more holistic discussion about EVs in Livingston, that's when we start talking about what our strategy is to really enable EV ownership in this community by encouraging infrastructure that reduces range anxiety. So that's DC fast chargers and things like that. So that, I mean, we're kind of bleeding into EV topics that are no, but this is exactly why actually I was hoping to do this letter, because I think once we have some information back from the city, like we'll be able to have some stuff to kind of respond to, and then it can kind of inform, it's, if we get some kind of an analysis study back from the city, then it'll inform what in general the ownership value proposition is for EVs, and we can know with a straight face whether we're moving towards something that is cheaper for our residents in the long run for them to own personally, right? And so a simple asking the city to do this as part of their procurement procedures is really that's really, it's two birds with one stone in that way. Anyway, is there, like, Danielle or Lindsay, haven't heard much from you. How do you, do you have any comments or thoughts on process or any of the other stuff? I just wanted to open it up.
Do I understand, Michael, that this is kind of, it's an actionable kind of recommendation to the city? Would the issue get passed back to our board for like more study in the future?
Yeah. That's the intent that's stated in the letter. It doesn't have to be, but that's notionally what's here.
So with that in mind, I mean, I, support everything Amy said about, looks good to me. It's very logical. If we get to take a broader, more contextual look about how, this fits in Livingston in the future, that I think it all makes sense to me.
Cool.
I had one thought too, is if the city's already looking at this, we send them this letter. It, puts an exclamation point on it, but it also puts in there that we want to see future, like we want a role in that going forward, which I assume they would have brought to us anyway, but this is just kind of like, hey, we're still here. Don't forget about us.
I think it also is good. It makes it more public because I think there's, maybe the city looks at it, they decide, it's not super useful right now. Maybe we revisit it in a couple years, but if it's only ever happening in the public works department and then nobody else, the public, nobody knows that the city actually even thought about it. I think it's good to make it to show that, it's being thought of.
Yeah, right. I mean, I also like it because, you have this kind of thing and then it goes through the commission and the commission says, yeah, y'all should go look at this. I mean, that they're the boss. So, I like, look at our dark sky stuff, right? So we made a recommendation that they come back with dark sky ordinance recommendations and all that stuff. We actually haven't even talked about this, but, at what point do we squeak that wheel? What if they don't come back with a dark sky recommendation in the next 4 months? At what point is, okay, we waited long enough, what's your timeline, that kind of thing. So I think it starts that discussion, it adds the project to the priority heap, and it allows them to plan for it. And then it kind of gives us a list of things that we're constantly sort of checking up on, which is another, it's another light role. I mean, our role is to work with the city, and our one light role maybe might be to just, hey, these are topics we're supposed to be looking at. What we haven't moved on this. Can you explain kind of why?
That makes total sense as an outsider citizen person, because we know the city commission is completely overwhelmed all the time, every minute of every day. I mean, they never can completely investigate what they need to investigate. And, this is an arm, I see you as an arm of the commission, one appendage, but a really useful appendage. And also, I do feel like there's certain things that can be structured, and I think this is one of them, where you create, and you did it, I think in your letter, Michael, but to create a mandate that has some elasticity in it. So they're asked to, ultimately, I think the goal would be that the city procurement policy is stated in such a way that whenever possible, they're asked to purchase replacement vehicles with EVs. Well, we know already, because of your expertise, Michael, but bits and pieces the rest of us have, that certain vehicles are not ready. The big, heavy ones are not ready. And they can still have all the authority to do the decision at the moment, but it's making a promise that they'll at least look. And I think it's really tragic when we don't get those promises in place, and 5 years from now, they've procured a bunch of internal combustion engines because the procurement process is separate from the city. There's other people doing that. And those people need direction. And so I think it'll be really cool if we can give them, an elastic mandate, really, if there is such a thing. And I think there can be. We don't want to get 5 years from now and find that there was a whole bunch of opportunity to get an EV fleet and we didn't get it.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, I mean, this isn't being forced on anybody, right? This was a useful thing for this discussion. Is a letter like this to the commission, do people have energy around this? Is this something that we should actually put on an agenda for the next meeting or the one after or something, and say, yeah, we're actually going to put this out to the public and we're going to vote on sending this letter?
Just real quick. Oh, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
No, you go. I've talked enough.
Well, I'm just curious how this differs from the dark sky recommendations, and if maybe you could just explain the strategy just a smidge for why you're hoping to do it this way and kind of the benefits.
Yeah, it's okay. Thanks. I don't know. That's the answer. I mean, this is an attempt to look specifically at the EV thing and say, all right, I think that the city staff would really appreciate, one, that we don't give them a ton of work, that we give them something that's very clear that we'd like to see, and then we can revisit it. It does kind of follow the same model as the dark sky stuff. And there's no data yet on whether that's successful, because honestly, even though that's out of our bucket right now, we don't have a new dark sky ordinance right now. So I don't know if it's going to be successful, but yeah, this is like the EV flavor, I think, at least with relation to the city staff. It's the EV flavor of the same approach as the dark sky approach.
So Michael, I figure you're the expert out of all of us just based on what I know of the board. I might be wrong. Is there a reason for us not to just vote on this and say send it right now? Or like,
No.
does somebody need to? I guess I feel like you already did all the work, so we could just send it unless you want us to discuss more at a later date. And I would motion, but I feel like you might have a reason.
No, I don't, at least not on content, Amy, but I think procedurally it would be better to tell the public, because I added this as a working item agenda.
Oh, right. Okay.
I mean,
It was publicly announced, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
We got Joan on here.
I know. Well, let's be honest.
You can call me the public.
Yeah.
I'll take that. That's quite the responsibility.
We've just been with this dark sky thing, we just hum and hawed too long, and I think moving forward, sometimes we just gotta do it.
Yeah,
That's
you know
have
what,
to
I think,
say, and it's what we want. We've been talking about EVs since we started this board a year and a half ago. So
you're right, Danielle. I mean, yes, it was publicly announced. I did get it into the agenda. So we could, yes, we could, if we wanted to, we could just say, yep, this looks pretty good. Let's send it on its way. And I think especially because it's not a recommendation on anything, it's just a recommendation of a study. It's just so we're going to see it again. It's not like we're telling them to change a law.
no.
Okay, I motion to send this letter to the Livingston City Commission regarding electric vehicle.
I'll second that with a referendum that we have Amy edit it. I don't know if you've edited it, Michael. Not that I don't trust but everybody needs a second edit.
Oh,
I can do
I'm
that.
very,
And
very
he
happy.
is our best editor. Well, actually, Lindsay and Alexis, I don't know how you guys edit. I just know Amy edits and she does well, and I don't. I do math. Amy does words.
All right, so we've got a motion that we send an Amy Bowser approved and edited version of this letter
Sorry, Amy.
That's fine.
to
I
the.
just have to do it soon, so
That's right. You are on your. Well, yeah.
that's
So
okay. I can do it. It looked good to me. I didn't see too many errors.
It's really short. I figured you could just skim it. Make sure we don't spell like there wrong. So really.
Danielle, I would never make that mistake. Okay, I can't believe you even suggested that.
I have to bring, some non-seriousness to the conversation.
All right, so we got the motion out there. Alexis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Amy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Aye.
Okay, well, I vote yes.
Well, see, now we'll know. At a certain point, we'll get some responses from this stuff, and we'll know which way works.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I like that we're workshopping process too. Well, I didn't quite expect to do that, but that's cool. I like the idea of charging ahead.
Getting stuff done.
That's right.
I'm good
You
at
did all the work
I'll be
writing
good at
it,
keeping
so.
us going.
Hey, we all have our roles in the the wonderful cornucopia of group dynamics on.
Charging ahead, that wasn't a pun, was it, Michael?
No, but maybe my dad brain is just always on. Now it's just automatic. So.
Well,
Okay.
I want to tell you, thank you for all your work. It's so, so, so valuable. And I'll stay in touch with you all because when the meeting comes up that they're going to vote on this, hopefully there'll be some YBCC people there just to wave and say, yes, good idea.
Thanks, Joni. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Okay, I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well, we should get towards moving to adjourn. There's only two things I wanted to mention. One at the end of this. One is with regard to agenda items. Can just a special request. Can you guys maybe just like I'd like to start doing meetings that have agenda items that come from that come pretty explicitly from other board members. I'm very happy to obviously do the agenda and publish it and interface with the city to do the thing, but I just, yeah, I would feel like it'd just be more fun so if anybody has agenda items that they really want to put in front of us, send them my way. Heck, it only takes the vote of two board members to force an agenda item. So, you could do it that way too. But,
Well,
just What's that, Amy?
I was just gonna say that one that came up that seemed like we were all on board with at this meeting was to come up with some recommendations of the city regarding community education on recycling and all the waste. And that is another one that would probably fall into this kind of quick letter that we can probably like get done quickly and get that out there.
Yeah.
And maybe some more complicated things that come up with that, but
Sure. Yeah, I love that. That's a nice bucket of stuff. So we could do that. I mean, we could do a whole agenda item. We also have, I mean, we did have a climate listening session. It's a daunting set of, community comments to sort of pull together and try to do something with. But I think it might be worth trying, at least to get together and workshop what our role in all of this is, maybe. And that might be a working meeting and only look at that, just maybe we can call in and wait, who is there anybody that isn't vaccinated?
I have one more next week.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we're actually getting to the point where we might be able to meet in person, with public notice and talk through some things if we want. Although, boy, is Zoom convenient when you have kids. I think I just called myself a kid there, didn't I? Anyway, so I think those are three things that sort of are on the agenda. Obviously, the city will come and ask us to look at things all the time, and like with this green waste thing today, I mean, we just shove agenda items aside and we go ahead and hear it out because it just needs to move forward, right? And that's fine. But I just want
a list of agenda items that we still haven't even gotten through when we made the first time we met.
Yeah, we do have that list. So if we like dusting that off and
maybe get that out and review it and revise it if needed with this current board, because that was from last year.
Yeah.
Right.
That could be our next agenda item, is pull that out, because Alexis, I think, has seen it because she was there, but she wasn't on the board at the time. And Lindsay definitely hasn't seen it.
Yeah, and we're a well-oiled machine now, I mean, we're just, look at us. Look at our output this meeting. Look at us. We're amazing.
We should be good for like 3 months now.
Yeah. So I'd like to have maybe a work, like I want to keep getting things done. So maybe like at the next meeting, we do just that. We try to put together a list of recommendations on recycling and green waste signage or something like that. Actually, we have a whole slug of AmeriCorps volunteers that are coming through to help out the Parks and Trails Committee. And they're not like all laborers or anything, it's not like they're not wearing the AmeriCorps shirts out and digging holes and stuff. Like some of them have like web design and marketing kind of expertise. And since I think they're being hosted and they're being sponsored by PCEC and Farm to School, but they're doing a ton of parks and trails work. So we could put together a package of work for them to do for signage on maybe ask them to do signage on recycling and green waste or something. I don't know. But I guess if we just put together like a project plan on that, which is really just like, these are the things we're trying to accomplish, this is how, and all that stuff, then we can just send that out to the commission. We can send it out to them, whatever, and just see who bites. I mean, we may even be able to get like, one of these, nonprofits like PCEC or PCCF or, YBCC or somebody, whatever acronym to pick up the project and go, but it's just, these are all thoughts.
I hate to cut it short, but if I don't get my dogs outside, they're gonna poop on my carpet.
Danielle, you're not cutting this short. It's 6:55.
He's currently chewing up my plastic cup.
Cool. Does anybody have any energy around a 1-hour working meeting to talk about climate?
Talk about climate?
Talk about the climate listening or the energy action listening session that we had, and what our board's response to some of that is going to be. Probably not the specifics, but more like in general, what do we see our role as an advisory board in the community, with that topic. I feel like it just feels like that's something we probably need to do at some point. So that people so that people know what we're going to do, and so people know what we're not going to do. So I was just going to float that out there. Maybe I'll send out an email with some times if people can carve off an hour. And I'm also aware that summer is coming and everybody's availability goes down in the summer, is my assumption.
I think an hour sounds really optimistic, but you can certainly try for that.
Well, if I set up the meeting and then don't join it and let y'all discuss it, it'll take 15 minutes because y'all are way more efficient than I am. But
yeah, send out I think that's probably the best way to deal with it at this point in the meeting. Send out a scheduler thingy.
Yeah. Okay. I'll send it out. Okay. Well, thanks, guys.
Okay, so I'll motion to adjourn.
I second. All in favor?
Yeah.
Bye.